works. It should. If anybody's in here, though. Another participant. Just wait out the time for the stream to start. Update that Amino post. I'll get in there too for some of it. Everything should be good as far as audio. And somebody else tested that earlier. Why did I just cut it? That's weird. But no participants. That's weird. We live, but is anyone gonna jump in here? That's the question. I'll wait. I want one other person in the chat that's not my mod to see if anybody's even gonna hop in. Quick message everybody that I did message saying it's going to be at 6:45 Central because nobody knows what times there are. Copy. Send. Send. Oh, I'm just pumping out so many messages. Oh, it's crazy. I kind of don't want all this dead space in here, but I also kind of don't want to start before someone that has their art in here gets in. What to do? What to do? Give till 51. It's 48 now. We give till 51 and see what happens. Don't fail me now, Amino. Not when I need you most. Set my phone over there because I know if it vibrates, my microphone is going to freak the hell out. All right. Okay. So, might as well get started. For anybody that is watching now, or that is going to watch in the future, thanks for stopping by. I super appreciate it. This is a horrible, not really caricature of myself, because that's not what I look like. My head is not a potato. But, all that aside, I don't know what I'm trying to do here. Some kind of weird, I'm a YouTube personality. This is what I do. Ugh. Okay. So, you may or may not know me from the Amino as the guy who makes kind of cool For Honor drawings every once in a while. If I was smart, I would have had a couple to show. For example, here, sure, that one. Yeah, so this is gonna take 1,000 years to load because this is a rather large file. But yeah, I do a lot of For Honor pieces recently because I really love the subject material. Opening canvas failed. Well, isn't that great? Basically, I've just really been enjoying For Honor. I've been liking doing art for it, and I wanted to do the stream to sort of maybe help out people that are on the Amino having trouble with the characters that may not know a whole lot about art, because Knights, Vikings, Samurai are super tough to draw, especially the Knights, which everybody seems to have an adoration for, from what I've seen. So, since I can't pull up an example of my stuff, let's just go ahead and jump in to the first person on our list. ANZ4C was one of the ones who I think, pretty sure I contacted him, maybe. I don't entirely remember. I don't have my chat open right now. But this is one of the people that had requested that I review their stuff, so they sent me all of these. I didn't pick these out. So let's go ahead and jump into it. Why is my tablet freaking out? Alright, here we go. So, at first glance, because I didn't look at these too much before starting the stream. If I was smart, I probably should have. One thing to note is that the quality of these is going to be kind of low. Amino doesn't upload their stuff at very high quality for phone data's sake. I think that's a good thing for the app, but as far as art is concerned, it is kind of a hindrance a little bit. Working. I just have the chat open now. Even though there is no chat because no one's watching this till now. But yeah, keep getting off topic here. What's up on overnight? Nice. Yeah, so where was I? ANZ4C first stars on. I don't want to say the chopping block, that sounds kind of offensive, but I think your stuff is, first impressions, I do enjoy most of your drawings. Your poses are pretty good from what I can see. Lots of interesting stuff going on, a lot of variety in the pieces. This here with all the minions getting whacked in the face, I love it. It's super good, and like there's a lot going on in it, and like the attention to detail is good. I've seen there's quite a few people that don't care to put this much detail in their stuff, and just draw like 1 or 2 characters at max, which isn't a bad thing per se, but I think this is a good way to go. There's nothing compared to these. Oh, come on, Underwear Knight, don't be bringing that negativity. We'll get to you in a minute. I like your stuff, don't you worry. Yeah, so essentially, I really like where you're going, ANZ. It's definitely some good stuff. A couple areas that I think you might work on. I know I'd mentioned it before. I do like the poses that you put your guys into, but I'd like to see a little more attention to the actual anatomy of the characters and how they are, because the way that you've got them here, like, these are definitely, interesting poses. They're not just standing there, and even, the warden, I know this is from that one picture, for reference, and that's, obviously you got all the details down there, and it's good to do reference work like that to start with this, and I like that you're taking that reference work and putting it into other photos for Warden and Conqueror. But the thing I would most suggest is to try and work on two things, I would say. One is the general anatomy of your characters and how they're sort of a three-dimensional object, not so much two-dimensional. I think this Conqueror is probably the best example of that. He's coming down with the flail, about to whack this warden in the mouth hole, and it looks cool, but I think that if you were to turn his shoulders a bit, because right now he's a little, I don't want to use the color, that brush size. So right now you can see, like, say this is his arm and such. Like, it doesn't quite make as much sense. Like, it's you're being really ambitious with the dynamic poses, and I can appreciate that. I just think that you could do a little more to make it more three-dimensional. So what I mean by that is, if I were drawing this, I would probably put Conqueror's head still looking down as it is. This would be a really crappy sketch. So Conqueror's head still looking down, but as you get into his shoulders here, one of them would probably be further away from the other, and his chest would be rotated. And the hips would be pivoted a bit, so he's got his other arm going out this way. We've got the shield here. I've got no idea how Conqueror swings his weapons. I'm making some guesses here. Yeah, so yeah, really getting the whole body into it, because to swing that heavy weapon, you really need a lot of force into it. So maybe try to show more of that entire body moving to work that weapon, not just his arm. Like, I like where you're going. I just think that it could be a little more dynamic. That would be the only thing that I can say. Also, I'd like to preface any further things. If it sounds like I'm coming off as an asshole, please don't be afraid to tell me. Also, I do see that chat. I didn't notice it before. I use a Artisul D13 screen tablet. It's essentially just a screen that has a pressure-sensitive pen that I can draw on. And that's essentially how it is. If you, I'll type it out in the chat here. So if you look that up, you'll be able to get a good idea of what it is that I use. But yeah, this is sort of the direction I would maybe try to go in, is adding, you know, that little bit of extra dynamicy to your poses. I think you've got some of that going on here, but then it's getting whacked in the head and his whole body is moving, getting stabbed and having to kneel down. You know, this you've got going on here as well. I would just, you know, really try to exaggerate those movements a little more. Like, just experiment with making those movements a little more crazy. But yeah, I like your stuff, dude. I like where you're going, and if I haven't followed you already on Amino, I definitely will, because it looks super cool. Underwear Knight, I think I got it for... How much did I spend on it? I think they're normally like $500, but I got it on sale on Amazon for the low 400s to high 300s. I don't remember exactly how much it was, but yeah, it was a pretty expensive tool, but I really enjoy it, and I think it allows me to put out some really cool stuff. But yeah, so to ANZ4C, PM me if you have any more questions or stuff that you want to talk about. Cool. Let's move on to the Doom Dude 172. I've got these in order, and I've got a white layer behind each one of them. So, not a For Honor related drawing, but it is from the Doom Dude, so I can't really expect anything other than a Doom drawing. That's not really too surprising. If I remember correctly, this is a Revenant from the newest Doom game. Let me check that real quick. I'm pretty sure that's what it was. Yes, Revenant from Doom. I don't know why it took so long to check that. I could have been wrong. It just made my comments anyways. So this one, I super am in love with this face. Like, man, that skull is awesome. Like, the depth of these eye holes and the way that you've drawn it and such, it makes it look so three-dimensional, and like you really get a sense of just the shape of it, and it doesn't feel flat at all. It feels like a really well structured object, and it's super cool. The disproportionateness, I don't know how well exactly this matches up to the in-game model. I don't really care though. Like, it's always subjective how you draw things from a video game. It's like you can make whatever changes you want as long as it looks cool, and just looks super cool. I love the way that it's colored to where the red sort of fades into the bone yellow color, with the blood all in the mouth. It's super awesome. In the future, because I was thinking about this before, because like I see how you've got it cutting off at the harness that they wear with the rocket launcher shoulders. That's one way to do it. One other thing that I would do, maybe, because I know that like they're not exactly skeletons, but they do have some skin, but they're not entirely covered. I would maybe, this is just spitballing here, to like close it out to make it sort of fade, so you don't have to, so you're not drawing the whole body. I would maybe like say to draw like the shoulders, but have them be really full of holes and lesions, and have that just sort of trail off. On its own, so it looks sort of more natural. I think it would just add a little bit more to the composition And just make it seem like a little bit more of a completed drawing. I know this is probably just a little sketch that you did for not a huge reason, but I think that would probably look cool in the future if that was something you wanted to invest in. The only other thing that I would say, because this head, as far as I'm concerned, is perfect. If you wanted to add in a little bit of that detailing, maybe on the neck, maybe you could do that, but as far as I'm aware, this is fine, dude. Chair is freaking out. The only other thing I would say is these shoulder cannons could maybe be a little more detailed. Of course, that could take away from the head, but I feel like it would be a little more interesting to see like the sort of geometric shape, because I'm pretty sure they're like almost like triangles as far as they are cannons. This is really shitty redraw, but like, I don't know, even something like really basic that has more of a geometric shape rather than just the roundness of that, I think would work a little bit better. I think the harness is great. Like, I think the detail on this is fine. It's got the metallic look to it, and as far as the shaping in here, but yeah, dude, this is a super sick drawing, and I will definitely follow you on Amino if I haven't already to see more of that. Loved it, man. Super sick. Alright, let's move on to the guy that's actually in stream chat, the real MVP, Underwear Knight, with these super great cartoon sketches. I really love these, man. I think the way that you sort of oversize your proportions for Conqueror here is just, it's perfectly hilarious. I like that you add in a little bit of shading with a solid color on that. I know a lot of sort of newer artists are sort of prone to adding like overly textured faded shadings, and it just doesn't work quite as well for cartoony drawing. So I'm really excited to see that that's what you're doing for this. Like, it looks, it's a nice little detail. It looks good. Yeah, overall I think these work really well. A lot of your other stuff too I really enjoy. Just the little comics that you make, those are super funny. A couple things though, to maybe sort of help with this over exaggeration is to focus a little more on your consistency of over exaggeration. And what I mean by that is, like, I kind of love this, but I think that it could maybe be improved, is that the Conqueror's body is here. And this may have been intentional. I may just be sounding like an asshole, but Conqueror's body is like super tiny except for that back muscle in there. But like essentially, he's just a twig with these huge arms. Like, maybe you could beef up that chest muscle. So that he's really just getting that out there. And that, I don't know, that might just playing around with the different body types. Lawbringer, you're not actually late to the party. It's fortunate that your stuff is last, because I've already gone through 2 other people. So welcome to the stream, Lawbringer. But like I was saying, I think maybe playing up the playing up the proportions of the different muscles on your characters might work to your advantage a little bit. Like, because for cartoons like this, the body shape is really what's important above anything, because that tells you like so much about the character before even really knowing about them. Like, somebody like Warden would probably have like very, it's too small, like a very, or cartoons. Just a really normal body shape, and that like sort of alludes to the fact that Warden is a really regular guy. Like, there's not a whole lot special about him, but he is who he is. He is a very straightforward, serious guy. That's sort of who I see Warden as with body type. But for Conqueror, you've done a great job as like a first step with these giant arms, because Conqueror's a huge buff dude who doesn't take no shit from nobody except the entire cast, because he's kind of in a bad spot right now. But regardless, so like Conqueror, like you have here with those. Like he was wearing sunglasses there for a second. But yeah, Conqueror with those big old... big old tough guy arms, essentially. So you think of, and it's super alright that you're like, you know, if you're new starting, you're still learning about muscles and stuff. I would like, you know, look into some anatomy stuff, try to get practice with being consistent on that sort of thing. But you think of any cartoon character, like their body type tells you a ton about who they are. Like somebody like Johnny Bravo, you know exactly what he's about just by looking at him. He doesn't even have to open his mouth. So I think that maybe trying to work that in to your pieces and tell more of a story with their body types, and really over exaggerating their features could do a lot for you. That would be like the number one thing. It's just you're already like 75% of the way there with the over exaggerations of your body types. I'm really repeating myself a lot. Over exaggeration. But yeah, you're doing a good job so far with the amount of detail that you're putting into your stuff. And I just think that if you went that little bit extra crazy with how redonkulous your body proportions are, that it would just look that much better. That's really the only thing that I have to say about your stuff. I love the art that you do, man. I'm like 1,000% sure I'm already following you on Amino. I will if I'm not. But yeah, super into it. Keep doing what you're doing. I love seeing your stuff every time it makes the featured page. Alright, so let's move on to the Lawbringer with a period. It's period specific. Like, you won't find him on Amino if that period isn't there. Like, it's nuts. Very important that period to be there. I swear to God. God damn it. I put this later. I may save this, so I want it to be as clean as possible. Okay. Okay, so the Lawbringer, blocking out the haters. I agree. I hope you're not blocking me out. I hope that I am I'm trying to make suggestions, but it's really difficult to not sound like an asshole while doing so. I hope that I'm not coming off as too much of a dirtbag. But yeah, so Lawbringer, I think I commented specifically on this drawing before that I really enjoyed the character that it was and how well done the proportions are. Like, let's just humor myself here for a moment. Gonna real quick. I'm gonna do this. This is going to take way longer than it should, but I just want to see if I can prove a point or see how close it is. Oops. Because I'm betting that you're either just over or dead on. Yeah, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So, yeah. Human figure are supposed to be exactly 8 heads tall for males and 7.5, I think, or 7 for females, just based on normal proportions. And this is perfect, dude. Like, I think female warriors especially are typically portrayed as taller, so the 8 heads thing works just fine. This is absolutely phenomenal for proportion wise. Like, super good. I love to see this. Super awesome. Excuse me. Yeah, super cool on that. Really loving how accurate that is for proportions. As far as detail, I like the approach that you had with sort of leaving spaces in here blank and then adding a little bit of stuff like you can see here to give that cloth texture. Yeah, I believe that you use the punctuation because there's so many lawbringers. There's, like, I swear to God, I got like 10 messages from someone named the Lawbringer one day when I posted something. So weird. They're all just barely different. Anyways, yeah, like I was saying, I like the way that you did the details and just the basic shapes. I'd like to see you go a little bit further on that, and maybe trying to add in some texture. Like, if this is supposed to be... God, the quality on these is so low. I really liked her face, too, and I can't really show that because of Amino and how it sends things. It's so nuts. But... say, like, in here with this, I'm assuming this is supposed to be chainmail. That would probably make the most sense because it's sort of a cloth thing. If it's supposed to be cloth, then whatever. But either way, you could add like a little bit of texture just to show, you know, what that specific material is. And just sort of get in there and add a little bit more detail to that, just to really emphasize. The other thing is this arm specifically, aside from that detail point, this arm specifically, I would add just a little line there to sort of emphasize that that's coming forward, because the way that the fingers are drawn, it's really obvious that that, you know, arm is resting on the shield, and like from the posing of it, but it kind of looks sort of odd because it's just the one shape here, and there's not really that clear line to define where the arm cuts off. So that's one thing that I would add, maybe to try to add a little more definition to the three-dimensionality of the drawing. So yeah, other than that, I super love this. I love the way you drew the hair. The shape of it is really good. It's got a nice sense of gravity to it. It's very realistic. Super into it. I love the mace and shield without a flail on there. I think that's a super cool weapon combination. The shield's kind of at a weird angle, but you know, that is what it is. I'm sure that's whatever kind of shield it was drawn at this specific angle would look kind of off. It's kind of like Nobushi's hat. It's impossible to draw from whatever angle you're trying to. So moving on to this Apollyon drawing, first of all, super cool. Like, I love love the way that this looks. I love the pose that you gave her. Like, I like that this is a non-standard pose as far as I'm aware. Like, this isn't, you know, just drawn straight from a reference. You really tried to, like, you know, give it your own spin and really make it something unique. And I think that worked out really well for you here, because the detail on this, the way the body is turned away but the head is still facing this direction, really works well to show fluid motion. I like the way that the cape is sort of spinning around her. That looks really cool. It's also a good excuse not to draw some details that I use all the time. So that's super cool. Yeah, I love all the belts and they're holding her armor together. One thing, just like with here, how that line sort of emphasizes that, you know, that arm is a three-dimensional object. I would do something similar here, because I didn't, like, looking at this for a little bit, I was kind of confused because I didn't really notice this was like a sleeve sort of thing that the rest of the arms come out of. And I was a little confused by that for a bit, but I think adding another couple of lines here would probably help to emphasize that and make it clear. I was told it looks like she's wearing goggles. I don't know that I necessarily agree with the whole goggles thing. I can see how someone would think that. I think drawing from the original design, it's kind of hard not to make it look like that. The solution might be to exaggerate these like a little bit and sort of hide the eyes a little more, and not filling out those lines all the way, just to make it clear that these are the same object and not different pieces of one another, might help to sort of make it clear that those are eyes. I'm not too sure if that would fix it exactly. I don't think it looks too off from the original design. I wouldn't be super concerned about that. But like I was saying here, I think that adding that extra line in there would probably help a lot to distinguish that this arm is moving forward, and adding that little extra detail to make it more clear to the viewer what exactly is going on. The other thing, like, the way her hands are moving, like, is super cool. I love the way her arms are going. I love the way you drew the hands. Like, the hands look super good. They're very detailed. But the arms connecting them are a little too curved for me looking at it, at least. Because, like, if you were to say to try to draw her arm under there, it would be a little weird. Like, this is a very distinct curve in that I don't really think makes a ton of sense. So what I would probably try to do in the future, I don't know, you know, what your process is for drawing stuff like this, but to me it looks kind of like you jumped in and just started going on the details. I'll see you later on where I go make cool stuff. But yeah, as far as it looks to me like you just went ahead and jumped straight into the clothes, and that's always a good time. But for stuff like this, for arm joints, what I would have probably done would be to sketch out her arm muscles. Got my pen squeaking. So yeah, just get a better idea of where her arm is relative to her clothing. And that's probably going to go a long way in helping you draw the clothes around that, please. I was reading chat. Drawing the clothes around that so that it makes more sense. And I know that that takes a lot of practice as far as anatomy, and making things look good in that regard is really difficult. But I think if you do make the effort to try to learn how that works, it's going to really pay off as far as how the clothes are going to fit around it and how the drawings are going to look from an anatomic perspective. Because for proportions, you're doing fantastic, but I just think it's the little details in how the arm muscles and bone structure works and moves. Not just arms, but the whole body in general. Like, I think just little details like that is going to really help you take your stuff to the next level of being able to do really dynamic poses like this. I really loved where you're going with that, and I think overall it's a really great pose. I just think there are a couple things that could be improved about it. Ooh, excuse me, I'm getting the burps. The last thing that I would say about, well, two things, is maybe try to add a little shading and texture. I know I mentioned that on this one, but for this piece in particular, because you've actually gone in and added a lot more detail, I feel like a little bit of shading could go a long way as far as adding, you know, a little more to the piece and making it that much more three-dimensional. So say like just under, you know, here, adding a little bit of shading here and there. Here, we'll blur this so it looks a little more coherent. Yeah, and then here, let me, instead of trying to draw over yours, let me see if I can just draw something real quick to make an example. So take that breastplate. And the reason I'm talking about your drawing sort of more than the other three that I've worked on, this is probably the closest to my style, so it's the thing that makes the most sense to me. And I hope you know, you can understand that, like, this is sort of more my personal preference as it comes to drawing. So this whole section of stuff makes more sense to me, and I can explain a little better as to how to make it look good, I guess. So let's see. So obviously you want to define your light source, but just to come under here and add a little bit of extra shading, just with your pencil or whatever tools you want to use, I feel like would add quite a bit to the drawing, just to, you know, add more three-dimensionality and give more weight and shape to these things. I feel like would probably do the armor quite a bit of justice. Or even just shading the whole thing and adding in texture from the parts that you don't color. So, like, to really give a sense of metal, give it a really comprehensive shine. to try to make it a little more clear what that material is and how the environment is reacting with it. That's not a very good example of a metal texture, but I'm hoping that this is all making sense. So essentially just adding that little bit of extra detail to the drawings I think would add a lot to it. The other thing I was going to say is if you don't have access to an actual scanner, like off of a printer or something, because I know a lot of people don't have stuff like that, what you can do to sort of take better pictures of your stuff, either put it under a really bright light or try to get a nice picture and then, because like every smartphone has this, you can go into your filters and adjust the contrast and bump that up some more, and that sort of makes the lines pop out a bit more. This is having trouble because of how low quality the images are, and it's coming out kind of pixelated and blurred. But if you do this from the original source straight off your phone, it usually works a lot better, or your computer, whatever device you want to use. It typically lets those lines show out a bit more, and if you've got a nice white light in the background, it'll even whiten up the paper so it looks more crisp and clear, if that makes sense. But yeah, that should be all I've got for you as far as advice. I hope that me shouting at you for for what feels like 20 minutes isn't taken badly. I do this all so you can get better and hopefully produce more cool stuff, because I know that you've drawn even more stuff past these. These aren't even your most recent drawings, but these are definitely my two favorite. Like, I super love the way that you draw stuff. Your sense of proportion is crazy good, and I absolutely love this girl's face. It's super cool. I love Woman Warriors. It's my favorite thing for sure. But I think that is gonna do it for this stream, as far as I can tell. I don't think we have anybody else in the chat that's going to drop some more stuff off from what I'm aware. So I will see all of you guys later. Please feel free to private message me on Amino or YouTube or wherever you see fit. This is this JP guy, and I will see you all next